Mainly due to COVID restrictions, each candidate is being interviewed individually. And today's candidate is Natalie Dawn from the Scottish National Party. Welcome, Natalie. Would you like to make a short opening statement to the voters of Renfrewshire North and West prior to going into the specific questions?
Hi there, thank you, yes. I'm Natalie Dawn, your SNP candidate for Renfrewshire North and West. I've grew up in Renfrewshire, I've lived, learned and worked here my whole life, and I can honestly say that I love this constituency. I'm really proud to call it my home. I have really strong connections to the area and it's now where I'm raising my family. So I really do believe that I have the needs of the people in this constituency at heart, and I'm the best representative to take forward their views and their concerns at a national level. Since 2017, I've been a local councillor and a part of the constituency. And I've always prided myself on being an accessible, approachable and hard-working councillor. And I really do feel like I've delivered on that. During the time of being a councillor, I've dealt with hundreds of cases and many local people. And as I say, I've always tried to deal with issues in a timely manner and get back to people as soon as possible. And I do feel like I've delivered on that. Like many people in the constituency, I grew up in a working class household. I did struggle in my younger life, and I think many of the struggles that came when I was younger were based on out-of-touch governments, out-of-touch politicians making the decisions for people. Well, I've lived a real life. I'm here to represent real people in this constituency, and I will do everything that I can to stand up for them. In terms of my sort of aims for the constituency, I believe that Erskine, Renfrew, Gallaghill, all our beautiful villages, they need a strong voice, somebody that will represent them strongly in our parliament. As we recover from the COVID pandemic, obviously we have to build towards a better future, and I believe that myself and the SNP will work towards that for this constituency as a whole. Our NHS and our key workers have been so vital over the past year, and the SNP and myself are absolutely committed to supporting that with record investment. My own priorities, I think, reflect the needs of the people in this area. So I want to see an end to child poverty, to poverty in Renfrewshire and Inverclyde. I want to see rail infrastructure and transport improvements locally for people. I know that would make a huge difference to local people. I want to work towards, as I say, an end to child poverty. A lot of people during the course of the campaign have been in touch with me about antisocial behaviour and a rise in that over the pandemic, and I know that that's a real concern, antisocial behaviour and vandalism. So I will work towards increasing the police presence locally in the area. In Bishopton, there's issues with the health centre, health provision. That's something that I've championed as a councillor and I'll continue working on and see a real solution to as an MSP if elected. And looking at our green environment, that's one of my priorities. As Deputy Convener of Renfrewshire Council's Infrastructure, Land and Environment Board, I've been at the front line of our policies relating to our environment. I was proud to declare a climate emergency, or proud to be part of declaring a climate emergency in Renfrewshire, driving work forward to tackle that. And I would like to build on successful campaigns that we've seen here in Renfrewshire, such as the Team Up to Clean Up campaign that's been wholly successful across Renfrewshire, and build on that at a national level, increasing community empowerment and raising more awareness about our environment, get more people involved and working towards a greener future. Only myself and the SNP have Renfrewshire North and West and the people that live here's needs at heart. We're working towards a fairer, greener and independent Scotland, and it's, as I say, I will stand up for all the people that live in this constituency.
Okay, thank you. Obviously you referred to several issues during your opening statement, but I want to go back to the current pandemic and the recovery. Which is really important. All these questions have been sent in by the voters. There's no escaping that the main area of concern just now is getting out of the COVID pandemic. What proposals for the roadmap out and what plans do you want to put in place to ensure the nation's security against future viruses?
Okay. Well, as you've mentioned, the pandemic recovery is absolutely key, and that's a priority for both myself and the SNP. The past year has been extremely difficult on all of us for a variety of different reasons. Many people have been disproportionately impacted, and going forward we need to ensure that we protect these people and protect those that have been hardest hit. The SNP want to work towards a brighter, better future. We want to protect jobs, we want to protect the economy, and I want to protect local people's livelihoods and businesses, and also working towards a greener future. So I think in terms of our recovery going forward, creating green jobs is absolutely at the heart of our, should be at the heart of any policies. Obviously, I've talked about declaring a climate emergency. We are under pressure to decarbonise our homes, to change the way we travel. I think there's huge potential for green jobs here in the constituency, and that's something that we need to move forward and work towards. Throughout the pandemic, the SNP have provided vital support to the people that have needed it most, filling in the gaps that have been missed by the UK government, trying to reach the people that have missed out on funding, providing over £3 billion of financial support to, as I say, the people and the businesses that have needed it the most. Going forward, the NHS absolutely needs protected and funded, and I think one of the things that's came out of this pandemic has been how important the NHS is. Obviously, one of the biggest reasons that we've had to go into lockdown is because we've had to curb the numbers going into hospital and admission rates with COVID. So I think going forward, we absolutely need to see investment and belief in our NHS. The SNP, we have put forward a range of proposals going forward, if we are successful in this election, to improve our NHS, to fund our NHS, whether that's improving waiting times, establishing a national care service, delivering the largest pay rise in the UK for NHS staff. And I think that, as I say, that will all work towards, if there ever is anything that we experience like that, again, strengthening our NHS, strengthening our social care services, strengthening our adult care services, that will help in any pandemic like this in the future. I think there definitely needs to be planning made to ensure that we are prepared for anything like this, because I don't believe we fully were. And moving forward as well, I think that we need to look at ways that we could change this country. You know, the people that have been affected the worst by this pandemic, I've said it's been highlighted, people on low incomes. And moving forward, we've got the chance to create a fairer society. We don't need to go back to the way it was pre-COVID. We could look towards building a fairer social security system, as I say, a greener society, something where everyone is slightly more equal. And if anything like this ever did hit again, then maybe people that were the worst hit wouldn't be in the same position again. Yeah. So I would like to see, as I say, going forward, green policies, more support for our NHS, and a look to change life for the better in terms of social security and fairness and equality.
Okay, and by supporting all these things, that's where you see ensuring the nation's security against any future viruses. Yeah. Having gone through one lot, you know which boxes to tick for the second time. Okay. Obviously, that's going to cause a big input into the public purse. Yeah. So are you going to be looking to get more money from taxes, or are you going to be, how are you going to run the economy in terms of prioritising? Is it going to be the same budget and then refocusing it, or is it going to be more money coming in?
Well, I would like to see more money coming in. I think we all would. I think I've already touched upon ways that we could invest in our economy and boost our economy. So as I say, green infrastructure, green jobs, that is the way that we are going to drive our economy forward. That is the future. And I think I've touched on ways, obviously, as I say, building, SNP have pledged to build 100,000 new affordable homes. Taken in line, there'll be a sort of energy efficiency standard for those. That's driving our green recovery and creating jobs for that as well. Decarbonising our homes, changing the way we travel, that will all give opportunities to boost. Right here in the constituency, obviously we have huge investment coming in with the NMIS, the manufacturing site, and that's boosting creating jobs, boosting manufacturing. So I think we need to rely on the resources, the people that we already have here, and there's no reason that we can't grow further.
Do you have a kind of time scale for that? It's not going to happen overnight, is it?
It's definitely not going to happen overnight. No, not at all. The SNP have put forward many pledges for this election, some of which I've just discussed, and those are going to be going through in the course of the next Parliament. Obviously, we have timescales in terms of our climate emergency brief, and we're working towards those. So, no, it's not going to be overnight, but that doesn't mean that it shouldn't happen and that we can't progress it so that in the future we are a more prosperous, fairer, greener, equal society.
Okay, thank you. Health and wellbeing, we've touched on that obviously there, but out with the pandemic itself, do you have priorities within the NHS itself? I mean, I give an example of people with MND, for instance, rely on vital services and social care and home adaptations, etc. But sometimes it's a very fierce disease, and they don't have time. And the timescales that they're having to wait, they're often dying before they get to that stage. Is there any way that you can think of pulling the social work and social services and support needs of people with MND or similar?
Well, as a local councillor, obviously, you mentioned things, sort of access and changes, adaptations to houses and stuff. I've obviously dealt with issues like that, and I've always tried to push for them to be dealt with in as timely a manner as possible, because I understand with a lot of illnesses, there sometimes isn't a lot of time. I would always support any funding that we could put in to help with that. I think that there's multiple things at play here. I've already discussed the implementation of a national care service, and I think even if that's not relating to the specific illness that you've raised or yes, other illnesses, I think that would take a huge pressure off the NHS, which would then allow other services to benefit from that. In terms of my own priorities as well, mental health is a huge priority for me going forward. Obviously, we're now in a mental health emergency. I think it's only been over the past few years that people have truly came to realise that, and it's especially been exacerbated by the pandemic. I think we obviously, the SNP, are putting record amounts of money into mental health funding. But there's always more work to do, and as I say, more and more people from the pandemic have came forward, and this has been an issue. So yeah, going forward, locally and nationally, these are big priorities for me.
Okay. Third topic is education. Obviously, the current schooling has been devastated a little bit by the pandemic. What actions need to be taken to make up the lost ground that the current school kids are suffering from, and what needs to be done to protect the future education of our children and recover Scotland's previous leading role in education?
Yeah, it's been such a difficult time for kids, and I genuinely can't even imagine how it's been the last year working from home for both children and families. It must have been a very difficult time, and absolutely going forward we need to ensure that these kids can get caught up and have access to the education that they need, and that's protected going forward. So again, if the SNP are successful in this election, we've announced some huge policies that will work exactly towards that aim. So we've pledged to give every school pupil a free device. Obviously that was something that was being rolled out through the pandemic, focusing on those that needed it the most. Firstly, that's now became that we will give every school pupil a free device or laptop. We're reducing the cost of the school day, so things like school trips, school uniforms, things that are needed in school that sometimes if you come from a poorer background, you can't always afford these things. No child, it shouldn't be about the ability to pay, it should be about the ability to learn. And when we're talking about raising attainment, these things are very, very important. In terms of, talking about the ability to learn, not pay, an announcement we've actually just came through with today is that free music tuition will continue, and we're also putting in free school meals for all primary school children going forward if elected, to ensure that no child is going hungry through the school day. And these are all measures, I think, with education, as you say, the disruption that has been caused by the pandemic needs to be sorted. But there's also a wider issue that I don't fully believe you can fully tackle the attainment challenge by just focusing on life in the classroom. And I think some of the things that I've talked about today, some of the policy announcements, that's building on that. So if there's poverty at home, if kids are struggling at home with families in poverty, families with drug abuse, alcohol abuse, these are the issues that we need to tackle as well, because they're not going to be able to fully realise their full potential in school while these other things are going on. So we're protecting education, we're boosting education, we're putting in place really good policies to improve equality. But I think other measures that we're taking in other ways in terms of tackling poverty and tackling inequality go hand in hand with that. And I think that's, I think that's how you move forward as well when you're saying about protecting it in the future. I think that's how the best way to move forward with that.
So it's a social element as well as the education.
Definitely.
Right, okay. Some people are concerned about a debt gap following any independence. Okay, if Scotland became independent, how would we finance both the present annual fiscal deficit, round about 15 billion per year, and additional debt that would incur as our share of any COVID borrowing that's gone on throughout the current pandemic? And it's, we're obviously in a bit of a state nationally, and that is reflected here.
My answer to that would be, I don't believe you can truly measure a country's wealth when it is part of a union and doesn't have full control over its spending powers. So how can the economy of Scotland possibly be calculated when, as I say, we don't have the full control over our spending powers? So in terms of the deficit and the debt going forward, I personally would like to see that investigated to ensure that it is accurate and it is what Scots taxpayers are getting, or are getting their bang for their buck. I think in an independent Scotland, there would be no reason that Scotland couldn't thrive. I mean, at the moment, you've got the UK government spending billions of pounds just down the road, billions of taxpayers' pounds on nuclear weapons that Scotland didn't vote for, that the SNP have strongly opposed. We've went to war with other countries, we've bombed other countries, the UK government have been involved in arms trades with other countries, things that the Scottish government have opposed and the SNP have opposed every step of the way. So we're getting, as I say, money, Scottish taxpayers' money is being spent on things that the Scottish government don't have control over, and I believe in an independent Scotland that we would put an end to, and then that would be some of that deficit back, definitely. Again, in an independent Scotland, I don't see why the country couldn't thrive. We have a huge amount of natural resources. We have a hugely educated population. We have a wealth of goods and things that people want to trade with. So if you coupled that with having the full powers over social security, the full powers over defence, the full powers over all the areas that at the moment the UK government hold the strings to, then I don't see why we couldn't, as a small country, thrive and reduce that deficit and boost our economy beyond what the UK government is just now.
But you've got to think about our trading partners as well. The Brexit has caused chaos.
Yep.
So why would the going independent from the UK not cause more chaos south of the border? I mean, and if we were wanting to go into the EU, there's the debacle of Northern Ireland and its situation with borders in the middle of a sea. How would that all be managed? These things need to be clarified, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I want to see us back in the EU. I want to see us back in the biggest trading bloc. As I say, we have huge exports and huge natural resources, and we want to be able to trade them. I think the mess over Brexit and the way that it was handled was a lot to do with the UK government's dealings with the EU. I think that grown-up nations should be able to separate from each other in a much more amicable way, and in a way that doesn't harm one another. So, yeah, in any deal going forward with Scotland and England, I would want to see grown-up politicians having discussions that won't, as I say, harm our countries going forward, but will work to boost both of us, but to boost both of them. Sorry.
Okay, well, I think there's a lot of issues that are going to need clarity before we get there.
I agree. And sorry, I was just going to say this election is obviously about Scotland getting the chance to decide its own future. The SNP have said that obviously recovery is first, but we want independence. And I believe that this election is about giving people that chance. The independence campaign will follow, and I believe we will be hopefully encouraging and giving you these answers during that campaign as well.
Right. Okay. That's something to be sorted out later then.
No, because I think I've given you the response that I have at the moment for this coming election, and I've said I believe we've got our hands tied behind our backs. The purse strings aren't under our control. I believe Scotland could thrive as an independent country, but as I say, this election is focusing on our recovery and giving people that choice, and people will have that choice to make at a later date.
Okay, and you're assuming that the EU would have us?
Well, yes, I would hope so.
Okay. Final question. Many constituents are concerned about the fractious nature of recent politics, and I'm not laying it all at the SNP's door. It's gone beyond normal party politics, and has left divisions in society, I think. How do you plan to calm these tensions and return our politics to a less divisive state?
Yeah, so I've kind of already mentioned that I think sometimes in politics we really need to act like grown-ups, and we need to remember that we have different opinions, but we all believe we want the best for our country, and I know that things can get heated from that. In terms of, I'll just give some examples. In terms of the local leaflets and things that I'm putting out for the constituency, these are focused on Scotland's future, Scotland's recovery, and the things, me personally, and the things that I want to do going forward for the constituency, whereas my opponent's leaflets have mentioned independence more times than I can count. So in terms of divisiveness, I would argue that it's not the SNP that are encouraging that, unless you believe that believing in independence is divisive in its nature. And I don't. I believe it's wanting what's best for your country and wanting to have the powers and the decisions of your country made by your government. I'm focusing on what matters to the people in Renfrewshire North and West, whereas, as I say, my opponents are focusing on mostly one thing and one thing only. So going forward, I want to just continue doing my job, being a local, approachable, accessible representative for local people, and proving that the SNP are the way forward in terms of recovery and a better society.
Right. Should there be a hung parliament, I know you're not hoping for that, what other parties would you align with other than the Greens? Do you see an alignment with any other party?
I couldn't say at the moment. Obviously, as you know, we work with other parties when it comes to budgeting, and if there was a hung parliament, that would obviously have to increase. There would be a lot more of that. I don't want to foresight the election. I couldn't say at the moment.
I don't think you're alone in that. Okay. Right. Well, that's all the questions that we've gleaned from the voters at the moment. Do you wish to make your closing statement now, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks. I hope I've given you an insight into myself and into some of the issues that I am going to go for in this constituency. I do have the lives of the people that live here at heart. As I say, I've lived, learned, worked here, and I've spent a lifetime living the issues that we all face here, and I'm ready to stand up for the people that live here in Holyrood. As I say, I have many aims for the constituency, whether that's focusing on sort of national issues such as improving our health services, tackling poverty, but right here in the constituency I want to focus on the things that matter to local people. So that's things like antisocial behaviour, bringing transport infrastructure back, creating more active travel, creating a greener Renfrewshire North and West. Over the course of the pandemic, we've realised how important our open spaces are to us. I want to see more money, more investment into our outdoor spaces, our play parks, our walking routes, our cycling routes. I want to make Renfrewshire North and West a happier place to live. And I fully believe that as a local woman, I'm the best candidate to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.